Hello, welcome all of you. I am Samapti, your zoology teacher teaching in Sri Chaitanya Institute. Students, we were discussing about the human physiology, and today we are back with a new chapter, that's excretory products and its elimination. So first of all, let's see what is the probable number of questions that we are expecting in NEET 2020. So we are expecting 1 or 2 questions this year as well from the chapter excretory products and its elimination. Now, without wasting much of the time, let's begin with the very first topic of the chapter. Now, since students we are talking about excretion, how do you define excretion? So let's just relate the previous chapters that we did. We digested the products, the end product of the digested were absorbed. To produce energy, oxidation of food was required. So in next chapter, breathing and respiration, we accumulated all the oxygen. For transporting that oxygen to reach to the tissues, what you required was the blood that was covered in body fluids and its circulation. And after metabolizing everything, after producing energy, what you are remaining with, some of the metabolic waste products, and to remove that is called as excretion. Now students, different animals have got different excretory products, and different animals have got different excretory structures. Number 1, we will be talking about the different categories of animals based upon what is their excretory products. So the first categorization that I have done is on the basis of excretory products, how can you classify the animals? Now students, this is quite easy topic and straight away questions are asked from this part. 2012, 2011, 2019 NEET questions were asked from this part directly. Just remember the excretory product and remember the specific example. Now students, quite easy to understand if I am saying that the animals are amonotelic, that means the excretory product is ammonia. Also to remember here is that ammonia students, now you know that ammonia, urea or uric acid can be the excretory product. When you are talking about the ammonia, ammonia is very toxic. Ammonia is 1 lakh times more toxic than urea. Ammonia is 1 lakh times more toxic than urea. To remove this ammonia from the body of the animal, large amount of water is required. So an animal who requires to remove ammonia will also require to remove a lot of water from the body. Now ammonia easily diffuses across the membrane, like in case of fish. Talking about the examples, bony fish, aquatic insects, aquatic amphibians, do you see everybody is living in water? So the animals living in water has a large amount of water available, so there is no problem in removing the ammonia using a lot of water. So easily diffuses across the membrane, that is ammonia, very toxic, requires large amount of water for its removal, 1 lakh times more toxic than urea. And remember the examples, bony fish, aquatic insects, not the terrestrial one, aquatic amphibians, also the tadpole larva of amphibia belongs to the category of amonotelic animals. Now talking about this side, the second category of excretory product is ureotelic. Now students, this is ureotelic, this is uricotelic. Talking about the ureotelic, obviously the excretory product will be urea. Now students, urea as you compared is less toxic, and in fact talking about the terrestrial adaptations, talking about the mammals which excrete out the urea, we cannot afford to lose a lot of body water. In fact, if we lose more than 12% of the body water, we may even die. So we cannot lose a lot of water, so we need something which can conserve water, which do not require a large amount of water for its removal. So that's the adaptation that you see in the terrestrial animals who cannot afford to lose a lot of water, and that's what you see in the ureotelic animals. Talking about the examples, mammals, terrestrial amphibians and marine fish is an example of ureotelic animals. Again, I am telling you students, please remember the examples. Examples are very important. Alright, now talking about the last category, which is uricotelic. When you say uricotelic, obviously the excretory product is uric acid. It is the least toxic among all the excretory products. Also, the examples are land snails, reptiles, birds and insects which are terrestrial. Terrestrial insects. Do you know one terrestrial insects like cockroach? So terrestrial insects, land snails, reptiles, birds. In fact, students, uric acid is excreted out mostly in the animals laying the eggs. What happens is that uric acid, being insoluble in water, gets accumulated in the shells of the eggs, and that's how it is not going to affect the developing embryo within that egg. So mostly what you see that the egg laying animals excrete out uric acid. So that's the categorization of animals on the basis of excretory products. Alright, now we will see the different types of excretory organs in different animals. So according to NCERT, what we have classified is the different types of excretory structures. Talking about the very first one, which is the protonephridia or the flame cells. Now students, these protonephridia or the flame cells are primarily concerned with osmoregulation. Their primary concern is osmoregulation, but they are also excretory in function. So excretory as well as osmoregulatory, but osmoregulation is the primary concern. Now remember the examples directly. Platyhelminthes, so examples are platyhelminthes like Planaria. Then Amphioxus, which is also called as lancelet or Branchiostoma, belonging to cephalochordates. Some rotifers are zooplanktons, alright, and some annelids. So these are the examples of protonephridia. Talking about the excretory structures, nephridia, this is excretory as well as osmoregulatory. Remember, this is excretory as well as osmoregulatory. So some other annelids belongs to having the excretory structure nephridia, like that of earthworm. So I have specifically written the earthworm having the excretory structures nephridia. Then talking about very commonly known and very popular, because you study about cockroach, and cockroach has the excretory structures Malpighian tubules. So Malpighian tubules are also excretory as well as osmoregulatory, like that of seen in some insects, for example cockroach. Alright, moving on to the next excretory structures like antennary glands or green glands. They are also excretory as well as osmoregulatory, but the primary concern is excretion. Alright, now talking about the excretory structures that is found in human, because we are studying about the human physiology. So we have got a proper excretory system. Human excretory system consists of a pair of kidney, one pair ureter, one urinary bladder and one urethra. So we have got kidneys for excretion, but the entire excretory system is formed of one pair of kidney, one pair of ureter, one urinary bladder and one urethra. That's the human excretory system. Now talking about the parts one by one. Talking about the very first part, which is kidney. The kidney is located, when you compare it with the vertebral column, between the last thoracic, which is T12. Last thoracic and third lumbar. So between T12 and L3 is the location of the kidneys. Also remember students that kidneys are attached with the dorsal body wall. It is free on the ventral side. It is attached with the dorsal body wall. Now talking about some of the dimensions, length is 10 to 12 centimeter, width is 5 to 7 centimeter and thickness is 2 to 3 centimeter. So that's the dimensions that you will remember. Also the weight of the kidney is 120 gram to 170 grams. Now students, talking about the structure of the kidney. First of all, let us see what is the protective covering outside the kidney. Now definitely you need a protection around the kidneys, because that's a very important visceral organ. Talking about the walls one by one, the wall of the kidney has outermost made up of connective tissue, white fibrous connective tissue. That's the fibrous capsule. That's the outermost layer made up of white fibrous connective tissue. Talking about the middle layer, that is made up of fat. Students, in animal tissues we have read that fat, adipose, is also acting as a cushion to the visceral organs. So the second layer is the layer of fat around the kidneys, which is the adipose tissue. Talking about the innermost layer, which is again made up of some connective tissue, that is renal fascia. So outermost renal capsule, then you have adipose capsule, then you have renal fascia. That's the covering. Talking about the parts of the kidney, you can divide the kidney into two regions. The outermost region is called as the cortex and the innermost region is medulla. Cortex is the outermost, medulla is the innermost. Now talking about the internal structure of kidney one by one. I have made the internal structure of the kidney, students. What you will do is, remember all the points that I am going to say. I have not written on the board, I have written all the parts. Will be telling you about the characteristics of each part separately. So what is this figure about is the internal structure of kidney. This is the internal structure of kidney. Alright, as I said that these kidneys are divided into two regions. The outermost region that I have made with the dotted structure is the cortex and the innermost region is called as medulla. Now talking about the medullary region, do you see these triangular shaped structure? These triangular shaped structure are called as medullary pyramids. These are medullary pyramids. And then there is this part in the medullary pyramids which opens into the funnel shaped structure. Each medullary pyramid has this point which called as renal papillae that finally opens into a funnel shaped structure called as renal pelvis. And renal pelvis, do you see, is this part, right? Now what happens, students, the medullary pyramids appears little bit striated like this, as if it is striated. It appears striated. Why? Because when we are talking about kidney, we are talking about excretion and osmoregulation. That means we want to talk about the structural and functional unit of kidney, which is nephron, obviously. Now when we talk about nephrons, students, nephrons in one kidney, you have got 1 million nephrons. And the arrangement of nephron is so that the Bowman's capsule, the PCT, this I am making a small nephron, is located in the cortex area, but the loop of Henle penetrates like this into the medullary region. And since the loop of Henle penetrates into the medullary pyramids, the appearance of the medullary pyramids is a bit striated. Got it? Now students, there is some extensions of the cortex region in between the medullary pyramids. Do you see some extension of cortex area in between the medullary pyramids? That extension of cortex in between the medullary pyramid is called as renal column of Bertini. What it is called as? Renal column of Bertini, not the renal column of Bellini. That is the spelling difference. I will tell you that renal column of Bellini is the collection of all the collecting ducts together forms renal column of Bellini. What I have said is renal column of Bertini, which is the extension of the cortex in between the medullary pyramids. Also, in the concave part of the kidney, each kidney has a single opening on the concave side. That single opening is called as hilum. This hilum, which is the opening, forms the site of entry of all the blood vessels or exit of the ureter and like that. So that's the single opening through which anything can enter or anything can exit. So that's the basic internal structure of the internal part of kidney. Now after kidney, students, the part which is going to carry the urine is the ureter. Now this ureter is 25 to 30 centimeter long tube. From the hilum, this ureter is finally going to open into the urinary bladder. Now students, there is no sphincter in the ureter, but there is an oblique opening that is not going to cause the backflow. So what happens is this tube, ureter, is going to open obliquely into the part called as the urinary bladder. When you look at the urinary bladder, it has got three parts. Also I have written that ureter opens into the urinary bladder's trigone. What is this trigone? Trigone actually, students, is the part of the urinary bladder, because when you see the urinary bladder, it has got three parts. The top part, apex, Then the body part, trigone. So in this trigone region of the urinary bladder, the ureter is opening obliquely. And the last part is the neck. Students, this neck of the urinary bladder is related with the sphincters, that is going to control the release of the urine. So the neck region is associated with the sphincter, internal involuntary sphincter and external voluntary sphincter, alright? Internal involuntary and external voluntary. In the trigone region, your ureter is opening. Also, you know very well that your urinary bladder will be having the smooth muscles, and contracting the smooth muscles is going to release the urine. The muscles of the urinary bladder are specifically given the name as detrusor muscles. The detrusor muscles, the name is given because it helps in detrition of the urine. Detrition means the pushing down of urine, the passing of the urine. That's why the urinary bladder muscles is called as detrusor muscles. Now talking about the last part, which is urethra. Urethra in males and females are quite different. In case of male, urethra is much longer, approximately 20 centimeter longer, and this urethra can carry urine as well as sperm. Urethra can carry urine as well as sperms, but in case of the females, urethra is much shorter, 2 to 4 centimeter, and it can only carry urine. So these were the different parts related with the excretory system of the humans. Now students, we will be discussing about the very important part, nephron. And talking about the nephron, it is the structural and functional unit of kidney. Structural and functional unit of kidney, which is 1 million in each kidney. 1 million in each kidney. Can you imagine how many nephrons do you have? It is divided into two parts. One is the glomerulus and other is the renal tubules. So we are going to discuss each of the structure of the nephron differently, and we will be discussing about all the characteristic feature of the different parts of the nephron. Nephron, students, is also called as uriniferous tubule. So if you are asked uriniferous tubule, that is also nephron. So now we are going to discuss about the different parts of the uriniferous tubule or nephron. Now students, let's start with the very important part, which is the structure of nephron. So students, I have made an open structure of the nephron, alright. Firstly, this diagram is for your understanding, alright. Actually, the exact structure of nephron is very compact, but if I make a compact structure, it won't be clear to all of you, alright. So I have made an open structure for a better understanding. Now let's see first, understand the diagram, and then we are going to see what the different parts look like and what is the lining of different parts. Now students, looking at the first part, the afferent arteriole, do you see this one? This is the afferent arteriole which brings the blood in your nephron. So this afferent arteriole, do you see it is forming a network of capillaries? This afferent arteriole, this forming network of capillaries, this tuft of capillary is called as glomerulus. It is called as glomerulus. So if you are asked what is glomerulus, glomerulus will be network of capillaries which is formed by the afferent arteriole. Alright. Now if the glomerulus is capillary, definitely you will be knowing the lining of the glomerulus, that is the endothelial cells, which is simple squamous epithelium. Now talking about the glomerulus that further forms this part, do you see this is efferent arteriole. So the afferent brings the blood, the efferent is carrying away the blood. Getting my point? Do you see a difference in the diameter of afferent and efferent? The afferent having more diameter, the efferent is having lesser diameter. Now students, actually we have divided our kidney into two parts, nephrons into two parts, as we have already discussed. One part is the glomerulus, other part is the renal capsule. And the very first part of the, not the renal capsule, that's the renal tubules. Now talking about the very first part of the renal tubule, that's this, which is Bowman's capsule. Also remember, I have written it over here, there is a thing called as Malpighian body or renal corpuscle, which is glomerulus plus Bowman's capsule. It's not Malpighian tubule, it's Malpighian body or a renal corpuscle, that is glomerulus plus Bowman's capsule. So this is the Bowman's capsule, that leads to a convoluted part which is called as proximal convoluted tubule. That leads to a straight part descending downwards in the medullary region. I have told you that if you want to divide, the loop of Henle is actually penetrating inside the medulla and the outer part is called as cortex. Alright, this part is cortex and the loop of Henle is penetrating into the medulla. This space is called as the interstitium, medullary interstitium. Alright, so this is the descending loop of Henle. That ahead forms ascending loop of Henle, and actually students, the ascending loop of Henle is having two regions. This is the thin part of ascending loop of Henle and this part is the thick portion of the ascending loop of Henle. Alright, now moving on to another convoluted part. Like this part was convoluted little bit like this, called as PCT. This part which is again convoluted is known as DCT or distal convoluted tubule. Now talking about the DCT that finally opens into this part called as collecting duct. Are you clear with the parts of the renal, the remaining part of the nephron? If you are asked students that among Bowman's capsule, loop of Henle, descending, ascending, DCT, PCT, collecting duct, which part of the nephron is not a part of single nephron? That would be definitely collecting duct. Do you see I have made certain branches like this in the collecting duct? Actually, the DCT of different nephrons opens into the single collecting duct. The DCT of different nephron will open into a single collecting duct. Hence, the collecting duct is not a part of single nephron. That's about the different parts. Now students, do you see this red color network? What is this? This is network of capillary. I will tell you the functions of these. For now, to tell you the names, the efferent arteriole. Do you see this efferent arteriole? This efferent arteriole is forming network of capillaries. The network of capillaries is formed like this, like this, like this and like this. The network of capillaries that is formed around. Now students, I have made it parallel, but actually what happens if there is a tubule, it is surrounding that tubule. Okay, it is completely covering that. I have made separately, but looking at the network of capillaries, the network of capillaries that is formed around DCT. Do you see this capillary around DCT and this capillary around PCT? So the network of capillary formed by efferent arteriole around PCT and around DCT is called as peritubular capillary. It is called as peritubular capillaries. Peri means around, tubule. What's tubule? Proximal convoluted tubule and distal convoluted tubule. So around the PCT and DCT, the network of capillary formed by your efferent arteriole is peritubular capillary. In the same way, the network of capillaries formed around ascending loop of Henle and descending loop of Henle. So around descending loop of Henle this and around ascending loop of Henle this. So this is the network of capillary formed around descending and ascending loop of Henle, which is called as vasa recta. I hope you are clear with the diagram. Now what I have written on this part, I have already told you about Malpighian body or the renal corpuscles, that is glomerulus plus Bowman's capsule. Talking about the Bowman's capsule student, this Bowman's capsule, it is having two layers. Do you see this layer? This is called as the visceral layer. Visceral layer means the inner layer. And this is called as the parietal layer. Parietal means the outside layer, right? So this visceral layer and this parietal layer is having simple squamous epithelium. But this visceral layer is having the modified squamous cells called as podocytes. Now look at these podocytes. These podocytes are having like this slit. This is called as the filtration slit. And the distance between two pedicel, two successive pedicel is forming the filtration slit through which filtration will occur. and the parietal layer, which is the outer layer, has no modification. So that's the information about Bowman's capsule. Now students, this PCT, this proximal convoluted tubule, I will tell you later that this shows maximum reabsorption, and the reason behind is the lining of this proximal convoluted tubule. I have written it over here that it is lined by brush bordered cuboidal epithelium. When you say brush bordered cuboidal epithelium, that means these cells, the cuboidal cells, having microvilli, and the presence of microvilli, it is showing maximum reabsorption. We will be discussing it later. Talking about the loop of Henle, do you see the shape of the loop of Henle? The shape of the loop of Henle is hairpin shape or U shape, which is having two parts, the descending and the ascending. Talking about the descending loop of Henle is lined by simple squamous epithelium, and the ascending part, which has two regions, the thin part and the thick part. The thin portion is lined by the simple squamous epithelium and the thick portion is lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium. Talking about the distal convoluted tubule, this distal convoluted tubule has simple cuboidal epithelium, and last part of the nephron, which is the collecting duct, as we have already discussed, that collecting duct, DCTs of many nephron opens into a single collecting duct. DCTs of many nephrons, since it opens into a single collecting duct is not a part of single nephron. Also, there is one more point about, I told you, renal column of Bellini. When you say renal column of Bellini, that's the collection of collecting duct commonly opening into the renal pelvis that we have already discussed. So, renal column of Bellini is actually the collection of collecting duct. Also students, we will see that this vasa recta, which is the network of capillaries, has a very important role in osmoregulation. Also students, we are going to see a sensitive structure that is formed as a result of modifications in the DCT and in the afferent arteriole. As I already said that this structure is not so open like that. Very compact structure. We will see that this DCT is very close to your afferent arteriole, and both the regions of afferent arteriole as well as DCT gets modified to form a sensitive structure which is called as JGA, juxtaglomerular apparatus, that we will discuss now. Talking about now JGA, which is juxtaglomerular apparatus, I have written that DCT is close proximity with the afferent arteriole, and you will see modification in both. The cells of DCT are more compact or dense in this region, forming macula densa. These are the modified or more compactly cells of the DCT. In the same way, the cells of afferent arterioles also gets modified to form JG cells. JG cells are producing this hormone renin. Students, we will discuss the function later. These JG cells of the afferent arteriole along with the macula densa of the DCT forms a region JGA, which plays a very important role in osmoregulation. Now talking about these two types of nephron, one is cortical nephron and another is juxtamedullary nephron. Cortical nephrons are maximum 85%, only 15% is juxtamedullary nephrons. Cortical nephrons have a short loop of Henle, hence it penetrates superficially into the medulla, whereas juxtamedullary nephrons have long loop of Henle. Cortical nephron, students, are only excretory in function, only excretory because the vasa recta is reduced or totally absent in cortical nephrons, but in juxtamedullary nephrons, vasa recta is very well developed and hence it can play role in excretion as well as in osmoregulation. Very important differences between these two. Remember that cortical nephrons only excretory, medullary nephrons excretory as well as osmoregulatory. In the next class, we are going to discuss about the mechanism of urine formation. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.